Hello there everyone, Matt here from thevirtualinstructor.com and welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, where we create a quick sketch of a simple subject or object inside of 30 minutes. Now the whole point of this is to have some fun, but it's also to improve your sketching skills, and in the process maybe you'll pick up a little bit of speed as well. Now over at thevirtualinstructor.com we have many different video courses, but we also have live lessons. So this is live on YouTube, but we have longer extended versions of lessons where we go deeper into materials, and instead of quick sketches we create finished drawings. And at the end of tonight's live broadcast here on YouTube, I'll show you the most recent live lesson series that we completed. We're starting a brand new one tomorrow night, so if you're not a member, there is a link below this video. You can click on that link and find out a little bit more about our program. If you already are a member, then I hope to see you tomorrow night as we start our brand new series on using pastels. Now, with that being said, tonight we're going to be drawing a bird. It's been a couple weeks since I've been able to do this, and I will continue to do this on Wednesday evenings whenever my schedule allows. For the last 2 weeks I haven't been able to do it, but this week I'm here and we're going to create a sketch and we're going to have some fun, and we're going to do it inside of 30 minutes. So grab your sketchbook, grab a drawing tool. I'm going to be using a graphite pencil for this. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. I do feel totally confident we're going to be able to get this drawing done in 30 minutes, but if you've watched the other episodes of Getting Sketchy, you'll know that it's always come right underneath the gun. We've just barely made it each time, but I feel confident that we're going to make it tonight. Hello to everyone in the chat box. I hope everybody is doing well tonight. I will do my very best to address questions in the chat box, but here on YouTube, the chat box flies by. So if I miss your comment or question, I apologize for that. At the end, I'll go back through and try to scroll through really quickly. But welcome everyone who is watching this live on Wednesday evening. With that, let's go ahead and switch over to the main camera, and we're going to take a look at the reference that we're using, and I'm going to say a couple of words about the reference, and then we'll start the timer. So are you guys ready to go? I know I am, so let's switch over. So here we go. Here's the photo reference that we're working from. Now, this photo reference I picked up from a website called Pixabay. That's pixabay.com, which is an unbelievable resource for folks who are looking for photo references to work from. Now, of course, you need to do your own due diligence when you're looking for photo reference, because there's a lot of copyright images out there that you do not have permission to use. But at Pixabay, supposedly all the images are copyright free and free for artists like myself and yourself to use. So I picked this one up at Pixabay, and I appreciate that site. If you're interested, I'm not affiliated with the site at all, but if you're interested, you can create a free account over there and go peruse their selection of photos. They have some really high quality photos, especially since they're free. Now, you can ignore the timer up here in the corner. I will reset that in just a minute when we're ready to start. I've already started it ahead of time and just put it in place. That will read 30 minutes when we are ready to start with the drawing. I'm working on regular old sketch paper here. This is 70-pound white sulfate drawing paper. Pretty straightforward. It's 9x12, not a big sheet of paper. I'm going to be using my Staedtler or Stadler mechanical drawing pencil, and inside of this pencil I have some 2B lead. And it is, you know, if you're not familiar with the grades of graphite, 2B is a little bit darker than your standard writing pencil, a number 2 pencil. But if a number pencil is all you have, which is really an HB pencil, then you can do what we're doing here with an HB pencil. You can do it with a pen. So, you know, just grab something. Grab whatever you have laying around to work from. And I see that it looks like on the stream I'm dropping some frames. We had this issue last night, and I thought it was resolved. I did some testing today with the live streaming, and everything seemed to be working normally, but it looks like we're dropping some frames tonight. So we're having some internet or network issues where I'm located. I'm hoping that we won't have these issues throughout tonight, but if we do, just bear with me. And here we go. Some frames are dropping again. So hopefully this won't continue, but we'll go ahead and dive right into this. We're going to draw this using basic shapes. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to look at the reference. We're going to try to break it down into very basic shapes. First of all, I'm going to look at this shape right here in the middle, and it's just a basic oval. It's kind of tilted at its side. We're going to pay special attention to the angle that's happening here. Once we've got that first shape in place, we're going to add another shape up here for the head, and then just a very simple shape for the tail and maybe some triangular shapes for the wings here. We'll add the branch or a little bit of an indication of the branch. Basically, we're going to be drawing everything with basic shapes. So that's the way I like to approach a drawing like this. And it's a lot quicker and a lot easier than trying to just take your time and draw all the contour lines, which I know a lot of people like to draw that way, but I feel like it's much easier if we start with just basic shapes and draw those basic shapes initially and then draw the contour lines once we've got those basic shapes in place. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got my pencil sharpened and I'm gonna reset the timer here. 30 minutes, let's go. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna swing the mic around here because now I'm wasting 30 seconds, maybe more than 30 seconds, getting the mic in place. There we go. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna very loosely draw kind of an oval shape here. And you can see I'm drawing several ovals. And as I'm drawing this shape, I'm not stopping moving my hand, but I'm going back to the photo reference with my eyes. So I'm looking at the overall shape here, and it's not a perfect oval. It comes out a little bit up here at the front, and then it kind of goes back. So it's not a complete perfect oval there. So once we've got that in place, I'll draw a shape for the head here. And I'm just gonna let this be kind of a circular shape. And you can see all the lines that I'm drawing here. I'm drawing very loosely. I'm holding the pencil down closer to the end of the shaft here instead of holding it up here where it's very difficult to create lines like I'm drawing here. If we hold it down a little bit further, you have a little bit more control. And then we have the beak up here, so I'm just going to bring out a little bit of a shape here. Triangular shape. Nothing real fancy. Pretty straightforward and pretty basic so far. And then we're going to go ahead and draw the shape for the tail. Now, one thing we can do to make sure that we have the tail the right length is we can make a couple of comparisons. So first of all, what I can do is I can use my photo reference and I'll measure the length from the bottom where the tail begins up to where the head begins and just get a measurement there. And you can see that's basically the oval shape that we drew. And then I can bring it down to the tail and look, it's almost the same length as the oval that we drew. So what we can do here is we can measure the oval that we drew, and we know it's almost the same length. It's not quite, it's a little bit shorter, so we have a good idea of how long we need to make that tail now. And that is a technique called sighting and measuring. So we sighted we sighted the bird there, the shape of the tail, and then we measured it, and there you go. All right, so that's kind of the basic shape of the tail of the bird. We're not going to get too worked up with making it perfect. This is a quick sketch. We want to keep things moving quickly. We want to keep our arm loose. Now I'm going to draw the shape for the wings here. And again, if we want to, we can kind of make comparisons. We can see that this wing starts about, or it breaks out of the body about halfway down. You see that? If I take a measurement right there and then another measurement, you can see it's just almost halfway down. It's just a little bit over. So what I can do is measure the entire body here and then find the midpoint. There we go. And then we can just drop down here, and we know that that back end's going to come out about right there, which is about where we had it, maybe a little bit further down. And we'll just bring this out. And I'm making marks with the side of the pencil even. That's why it's kind of a light mark that you see there. And we'll just bring this inside. And continually we're making comparisons and making adjustments where it's needed. And there's a little bit of an adjustment I need to make here. There we go. And then we have this dark shape that's happening right here. So we'll just plan that out a little bit. And then we'll reinforce the back of the bird here just a little bit before we start making the contour lines. And before we start making any of the contour lines, we need to go ahead and add where these legs are going to be. So this leg looks like it starts about about right in this area somewhere. And this is another important thing to keep in mind here. You know, our tendency would be to draw the talon kind of coming down at an angle, but look at how almost straight across this is. It's almost straight out. So it's little things like that that we need to pay attention to. We'll bring it down just at a slight angle because that's what's happening there. And it looks like the actual talons start right at the body, right at the bottom portion of the body. So right here, there's a connection that happens there. And then I'll just draw some basic shapes for the talons. Keeping it quick. We'll draw an indication of the branch here. As those talons wrap around the branch. And then he's got one really long talon that is probably not super long for a bird, but it looks long in proportion with its body. Can you imagine having a finger that is that long in proportion to your body? That would be pretty ridiculous. Okay, so back here, the back talon, real easy. We can look at where it should exist. We can see that this is where the tail connects with the body, right? You see that right there? So that's where the talon comes down, or the leg first. And it extends down. We'll go ahead and continue this branch down here. And it comes down at an angle. And then over. And then we'll just draw another kind of cylindrical shape here, a cylindrical form, I should say, for the bottom talon. For this part of the leg, the talon that wraps around the back. And these talons are so long that they can't even wrap around the branch. They have to extend down past the branch. Poor guy. I wonder if the other birds make fun of him for his super long talons. That would be unfortunate. They probably don't. They're probably scared to death of me. All right, so we've got the branch and we've got the talons in place. Let's go ahead and draw in the eye, or get a good idea of where the eye is. And again, I'm just making a comparison between the beak. We can see it's kind of in line with the top of the beak, the top portion there. So we'll go ahead and draw a shape for the eye. And then we'll take a look at how we're doing on time here. After I go ahead and put an indication of where the beak comes together. We've got the top beak and the bottom beak, I guess. There we go. And it's time to sharpen the pencil anyway. And oh my gosh, we've only used up 8 minutes. Not even 8 minutes. So yes, no doubt we're going to get this one finished tonight. In fact, we're going to be able to slow down a little bit. I say that, and then I start to slow down, and then I run out of time. So maybe I shouldn't do that quite yet. All right, so my pencil's nice and sharpened. What we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and give an indication of where there's another layer of feathers that come down, or another wing or something like that comes down here. So we'll go ahead and give a little bit of an indication of that here before we start getting really more detailed. This isn't going to be a super detailed drawing, but it's just a sketch. And, you know, I've been asked before, what's the difference between a sketch and a drawing? And I actually wrote a post on it a long time ago, but it's still one of the more popular posts, or it gets a lot of traffic, I should say. But in that post, I talk about how drawings are typically more refined drawings. Let's go ahead and zoom in. Drawings are typically more refined pieces of artwork, and sketches are a little bit looser and more informal. It's kind of like you might wear a suit to an event, or you might wear shorts and flip-flops to an event. A sketch is kind of more like the shorts and the flip-flops, and a drawing is a little bit more like the suit. Although a sketch is still a piece of artwork and a drawing is still a piece of artwork. They're just, one's a little bit more formal than the other. Same thing, you might go to a restaurant, you might order steak if you are a meat eater, or you might just get a hamburger. All right, let's go ahead and get back into this hamburger here. Now we're going to go ahead and start refining the contour lines. And contour lines are just a fancy word for outlines, basically. So we're going to go in here. We're going to give a little bit of a jagged edge here to create the impression that this bird does have feathers that go around it. It's not a super smooth bird, but the beak here, we can make the line a little bit smoother. Now, as we do this, we're going to try to think about what's called line quality. Line quality is the thickness or thinness of a line, and it's typically a good idea to vary line quality if you're doing a line drawing. But even if your finished drawing isn't going to be just a line drawing, we can still have some variation in line quality. Of course, that provides quite a bit of variety in our drawing, and variety is important. Variety adds interest in our drawings and paintings. And you can imagine what life would be like if you had no variety in your life. I like to talk about eating your favorite food forever for the rest of your life. How that would be cool, like for the first few hours. Then it wouldn't be cool anymore. So I'm just basically drawing contour lines here where we've got the darker shapes. We'll go back in and fill those in a minute. But I'm just getting an idea of where they are on the surface. And then out here in the front, we've got some white feathers. I tell you, I can't help it. I want to call this fur so bad. I know birds aren't furry, or at least this bird probably isn't furry, but it sure does look like it, doesn't it? Those feathers really look a little bit furry. If you're drawing alongside of me, which it'd be really cool if you are, then don't allow yourself to get too worked up over making everything perfect here, okay? This should be quick. And really a finished drawing, or really 30 minutes is not enough time to create a finished, polished drawing. So don't put that pressure on yourself. Loosen up. When you're creating a sketch like this, you're using the same mental muscles that you use when you create a more refined drawing. Let's go ahead and fill in this eye. Give him a bit of life. We'll leave a highlight right up there. So you're basically practicing the same way you would be practicing if you were creating a more refined drawing or painting. And the more that you practice, the better you're going to get. So the more time you spend drawing anything, even if it's a quick sketch like this, it's all a form of practice. And it's just like athletes practice their sport. They're not always, they might run drills and things like that to help them be better prepared for the game. The same thing's true for a sketch like this. This is all practice. It's all going to improve our drawing skills overall. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start filling in some of the value here as we're addressing these feathers here. I'm just yakking away, and what's going to happen is I'm going to look up and I'm going to be out of time. So I'm going to try to not let that happen. I get so confident that I can get the overall form down so quickly, and then I forget how much time it takes to add shading and value and things like that. And for those of you who don't know, value is a fancy word for shading. Value is the darkness or lightness of a color. We see the world around us as a full range of value, so it only makes sense that in our drawings we also include a full range of value. Of course, if you're trying to create a drawing that is not realistic or not representational, then you're free to not include a full range of value. But if you are wanting to create a drawing that looks representational, then you should concentrate on getting those dark darks and those light lights and the range of tone and value in between. And tone, by the way, is another word for value. So when you hear someone say tone, that's also value. And value is, of course, a characteristic of color as well. Value is one of the 7 elements of art, but it also is considered a characteristic of color. So, in other words, the color pink, everybody calls it pink. Of course they call it pink, but pink is actually just a value of red. Pink is not a different color. That's why pink is not on the color wheel, and I'm just using pink because that's a good example. Red is on the color wheel because red is the color, and pink is a value of the color. and I'm here in North Carolina. And there's a big rivalry in North Carolina between Duke University and UNC Chapel Hill. I'm going to call them UNC Chapel Hill because we have lots of universities of North Carolinas in this state. There's not just one. There's actually 16, I think. But Carolina, of course, is blue. And they're, of course, Carolina blue. And then we've got Duke, who's also blue. So they're actually the same colors, just different values of the color. Now we could go into talking about how the pigments change the color and everything, and that's true. Duke blue is actually a different pigment of blue. But I'm kind of getting sidetracked here. We'll get back on track here. I'm going ahead and filling in some of the darker tones and values on the head of the bird too. And you'll notice as I'm adding these values, I'm trying to pull my pencil in the direction that the feathers are growing. And that's basically using a concept called cross contour lines. So I'm trying to flow with the direction that the fur is growing. And if I just haphazardly went in a different direction, it would do very little to help communicate the form of the bird. So by going in the direction that the feathers are growing, I might have said fur. By going in the direction that the feathers are growing, it helps to create the illusion of form. And I just glanced at the chat box. Somebody said, should I give up on art? What? No. Yes, you will. You'll be good. All it requires is practice and a little bit of knowledge. And I have practice all the time. I practice every day. This is my job. But it took years of practice in order for this to eventually be my job. You know, that you can't just expect some magical thing to happen and then all of a sudden you're drawing well. There's so many people out there who are looking for some quick answer. And, you know, there's really those things just don't really exist in life. The things in life that are most worthwhile are not the things that come quickly and easily. They are the things that take time and practice and dedication. And sometimes some things look so hard and so difficult that they seem completely impossible. But I can tell you from experience, that's not the way life works. You can go through life listening to what other people tell you and believing what they tell you, or you can go through life and make your life the way you want it to be. And it's up to you. It's up to you ultimately to decide which way you're going to be. The easy route is just to do what everybody says you can do. And take the easy route. But that is not the fulfilling route. And if you think about it, you have one life. Well, most of us believe we have one life. I believe we have one life. And you're living it right now. Every second that clicks off the clock, up there in the corner, is another second that we'll never have again. Think about that. And you need to really consider that and think about how you're spending your life, how you're going through life. Boy, talk about some tangents here. But we can do anything that we want if we're willing to work hard enough at it. And we can be anything or anybody that we want as long as we're willing to work at it. And this is not just mumbo jumbo. This is stuff that I've witnessed and lived myself. So, and not just with experiences that I've had, but experiences that I've seen and had through the lives of my students over the years. All right, so we got that feather looks so, or that wing looks okay. We'll move on. It's not perfect. Of course, it's not going to be perfect. And that's another thing. We got to let perfection go and understand that nothing that we draw or paint is going to be perfect. In fact, there's never been a piece of artwork that is perfect. Art scholars will try to tell you that that's not true, but that is true. There's never been a piece of artwork ever that's been perfect. Nor will there ever be. All right, luckily, a lot of this area down here is not very dark. Most of it is very light. So we'll quickly go ahead and define the feathers down here. Be loose, it can be loose. This large white feather here. And I know we've got 10 minutes left. Am I going to make it? I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to make it. I think I'll make it. I'm working at half speed here. Well, not half speed. I'm working at normal speed. But I can go faster. I'm also talking a lot too. All right. So we'll just make a little bit of a transition here. And then this is going to be fairly dark value. So we'll quickly fill this in. And boy, I tell you, value, in my opinion, is the most important element of art. It's how we see the world around us. Can you imagine what life would be like if there was no light? We see because of light, and value is what describes the light. It's how we understand the light around us. And as a result, it's how we understand objects and the form of the objects, and also the texture. You see I'm creating the texture here on the side of the bird by manipulating value. It's just so important. And if you talk to most experienced artists or artists that's their profession, that's what they do, they'll agree with me that value is the most important element of art. So the light is coming from above, obviously, so the underside of the bird is going to have a little bit of darker value, and that's what I'm filling in right now. And we have 8 minutes. I told you I would start relaxing a little bit and start running out of time here. I still think I'm going to make it. Okay, so we'll continue up here. Of course, this drawing is not going to be as refined as I would like it to be, but that's okay. We'll still see some of those sketchy lines that we drew originally in there and all that stuff. And that's no big deal. All right, so there's for lack of a better word, there's a feathered kind of texture that happens here. So we'll kind of put a few marks in a layered fashion here and allow those to get a little bit darker as they go back. There we go. And some of this value underneath here gets pretty dark, so we'll try to fill that in quickly. Again, you can see I'm making marks that flow backwards. And I stopped for a minute because on my screen, the feed disappeared, but it looks like everything's streaming normally. So I'm going to keep going here. I'm not sure why it did that, but what's going on my YouTube screen here is I disappeared. It says the video is unavailable, but it's showing that it's streaming. So I'm going to keep going. I don't know what happened there. I'm not going to stop and try to refresh or anything because I've only got 6 minutes left. I only got 6 minutes left. I did just a minute ago. That seemed like a lot of time. Or that I didn't have that much time. Now it seems like I have a lot of time. Because all I have is the branch down here, and that's about it. And the talons. So no problem. We're going to get this one done. Okay, so somebody thank you for posting that I'm on. I figured I probably was. All of the streaming equipment says everything's still going here. This must have been a YouTube thing there for a second. All right, I'm just going to reinforce this outer contour here. even though in the drawing it's not, or in the reference it's not as strong, there's actually a highlight that happens right there around the edge. But since we're creating a drawing, sometimes we have to think about how the drawing's going to present and how it's going to be read. And in this particular case, we're going to just give that contour line a strong presence here. Now the back leg here, we've got a really dark value, so I'm going to go ahead and fill that in and leave a highlighted edge there. You can kind of see that highlighted edge. That's actually happening in the photo reference. And then we'll make some more cross contour lines around the talon here to indicate some of the shadow and some of the shading. And then it goes back into light down here, but we still have some strong contrast. Here we go. Let's do the other talon here. And real dark. And then it gets a little bit lighter, but we have those cross contour lines that just wrap around the talon. And we can use them to create the impression of the texture there, as well as the value that we need there as well. I'm going to just let that talon wrap around. And then the other rogue talon there. All right, let's go ahead and add just a little bit of tone to the branch. And I'm going to try to make my strokes flow along the form of the branch. And they'll get a little bit lighter up here to the top. So a little bit lighter, and darker on the bottom. Just like that. Nothing fancy there. We'll have a little bit of variety in there just to make it feel like a more natural branch. What I mean by a little bit of variety, we can have a little bit more, some lighter values and some darker values happening in there. But most of the darker values are going to happen on the bottom. And 2 minutes left. 2 minutes. It's ending up where we're under the gun. Not really. This has been, of all the episodes so far, we haven't had that many episodes. This is a relatively new segment here on the YouTube channel. But of all of the episodes, like there's many billions of them, this one is the one where I felt the least stressed about finishing in time. All right, let's reinforce this bottom line here, and then we'll do a little bit of erasing. There we go. Now I'm going to use my kneaded eraser here, and I'm just going to erase some of these stray lines in the middle. These are some of the lines that we used originally to define the shape of the bird way back when we started this drawing 29 minutes ago. And then we'll clean up some of the lines on the outside. To finish this guy up. And if there was anything else in there, we could clean that up as well, but let's just take a last look here and see if there's any other opportunities where we can add just a little bit of tone, and maybe right up here. This area just feels a little flat, so we'll just add a little bit of value up there, and maybe just underneath the beak, just a little bit. And maybe just a little bit on the breast. Just a touch. Just to make it feel a little less flat up here in that area. I know there's a lot of white value, a little bit white value. There's a little bit of really light value up there that's actually white. Okay, so 47 seconds left, and I think I'm gonna call this one finished here. Let's see here. I'm gonna take a quick look at the chat box here as things are starting to slow down here. I guess everyone's still seeing me. It's still showing here on my screen that the video is unavailable, but I guess everybody is still seeing me. Okay. All right. So there we have it. Here is our bird. It is finished. 17 seconds, 15 seconds. We finished this one a little bit early. I don't want to say it's easy because for those of you who are learning how to draw, when someone says it's easy, just do this, it can be frustrating to hear that because it's not easy if you are learning how to draw. It's a challenging process, but it's a skill that anyone can learn. The process, though, is straightforward and basic. We drew basically 3 shapes. We drew an oval, we drew a circle, and then we drew kind of a triangular shape here. We measured. We used the pencil to measure to make sure that we were as close to accurate as possible. And then we went in and drew the contour lines or the outlines after we had the shapes in place. If we would have done the opposite, if we would have just drawn the outlines right from the beginning, we'd probably still be drawing outlines. But by breaking things into basic shapes like this, we can draw things really quickly and with a high level of accuracy too. So if you don't already draw with shapes, then give it a shot. It increases your speed, increases your accuracy, and it makes drawing a whole lot heck of a more fun. All right, I told you that we would take a look at the art that was created for the last live lesson series. And for those of you who don't know, we have at thevirtualinstructor.com, we have a membership program which includes 12 comprehensive video courses with a new one that's being released right now on drawing and painting. Each one of the video courses includes an instructional video modules, of course, course modules, and each module includes a course video and a downloadable ebook, an illustrated ebook. Our courses are very comprehensive. They're not like the regular courses that you find on some websites. They are real deal courses. Lots of pieces of artwork made in the courses. And then we have weekly live lessons, similar to this, except we do more finished, more refined pieces of artwork over a period of several weeks. And this is one of the pieces of artwork that we just recently created. This was for a live lesson series. We used pen and ink to draw a horse, clearly. And this lesson series took 5 hours. So this represents 5 hours of work, and this represents 30 minutes. Anyway, if you're interested in checking out the program, there's a link below this video. You can check it out. We start everybody off with a trial, so you can go in and try it out for 7 days and see if it's right for you. And if you do decide to join, or if you're already a member, I hope that you see us tomorrow night for our live lessons. We're going to be starting a series on pastels. So if that interests you, head over and have a look. All right, let me go ahead and switch over here. I'm going to slide this huge mic out of my face. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. We had quite a number of dropped frames. I hope you were able to stay through there. Looks like we're still having network connectivity issues where I'm at, which is very frustrating, but I think we made it through okay. There's some dropped frames there. We'll deal with it. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed tonight. I hope you picked up a couple of things. I appreciate you guys showing up, even when I don't send out an email or anything like that. That is so cool to start broadcasting and then people are just pop up in the chat box. It's like magic. Anyway, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and sign out for this evening. I hope you guys have a great one. Good night, everybody.